Hey, what is going on, guys? So today I wanted to take a look at the Vega 64 Vega, what are the FE edition, Founders edition, whatever they called it, Frontier edition, because I was doing some research and I was looking at some cards, and I come to the realization that nobody out there really does a good analysis on Vega. Like, there's a lot of review sites like Tom's that are really credible or whatever they're not, in my opinion, doing a very good job of representing what Vega really is. Yes, there's some information out there that is, decent. I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to show you, what it looks like in my case or whatever, and it's dirty. I know I just took a picture now, so you can take that for what you will, whether it's real or not. But, yeah, so there it is. And my Ryzen system. Don't mind that little card there doesn't have a screw. I lost it and I just let it. I don't even use the Wi-Fi. I could have just pulled it out, but whatever. Yeah, so I thought we'd talk a little bit about it and what it's good for. And so you may have gone on the internet and looked for reviews. And let me just bring this over here. And found things like this. Summary and conclusion. Okay, and they put an OC Alpha Cool thing on there, and it's water cooled, right? Sorta. If my all-in-one probably does a better job from AMD, then this probably isn't a very good all-in-one or a liquid cooled card. It's probably more comparable to a good air cooler. So that's one thing. If we go into, I don't know, I didn't really look at this article that closely, but they talk about temperatures and things, and basically look at their temperatures. They're at like 54 degrees on the GPU, and I don't think that's definitely not the hot spot. So peaking at 1630 all the way down to 1401. So, what does that tell you? That tells you that they're throttling based on power, right? So they go to try to undervolt this thing, and what do? They go into the Radian Wattman settings, which are obviously been revised since when they did this review, and they hit manual voltage, and then they try and lower the voltage. But what they don't understand, or they probably didn't at the time, is that if you go into GPU Z and you look at your core voltage, this number here is actually a lot lower once you enable manual voltage control. So just by enabling manual voltage control, you actually undervolt your card. So I get a maximum of 1.15. Well, maybe 1.165 or something like that as a very peak. But so that's at 1200 millivolts, so 1.2 volts. That's the peak that I get. So that gives you a lot more overclock headroom, and I can sustain a 1675 clock speed, depending on the test. Some clock speed tests render higher core clocks than others. Let's see here. So, okay, before we do that, my whole point was they don't really understand how to overclock the card yet because they're rushed to do this article and what have you, right? So if they were to go in there and turn the voltage down 100 millivolts or 50 millivolts, it's probably not going to be stable at any clock speeds that are worth anything. But the thing is, a little bit of voltage changes a lot on your power delivery. So it doesn't take a lot of power or a lot of voltage to change how much you're hitting the power limit, right? Because voltage is multiplicative by your clock speed. So let's say we go on the internet here. God damn it, I had this all laid out. And you look on Reddit. Okay, 1850C, or, 1850 core clock. And 1000 on the memory. Okay. And if you start reading here, they'll say that this is bullshit. that these clocks are not right. See, the power is the real OC has not increased since 1630. Let's make that bigger so you can read it. Buildzoid talked about this. Overclocking is broken. Well, sorta. It was never actually broken. The numbers it reported may or may not have been a little bit different. So if anybody's wondering, I'll just cut to the chase and okay, so they're talking here, and then somebody's like, "Oh, I got results here." And I can't find the links here. Here they are. So they're talking about how very little performance they gained. So, this is the first one. That's this one here. No OC plus 50% power. Okay. 4% OC and 50% power. That's the second one. So this is the first one. 22,271. This second one, 22,900. Okay, so they gained performance, right? 22,271, 22,942. Here's the third one. And this is the one they did the memory on. So now they're at 23,121. So they put the HBM up from 945 to 1020, which is a nice boost to performance. So they went from 2294 to 23,121. Okay, now let's take a look at my results from my stock Vega liquid cooled. This is no power limit boost, right? So just shy of 2300 versus 2227, but mine's liquid cooled, so my power envelope is larger. Is it 50% larger? I don't think so. So I think they could do more here. I don't know why it's so low. I think it could be a little better than that, but it's not a big deal. It's neither here nor there. It's close enough to the, same point, right? Where'd it go? Where did my result go? Oh, here it is. So that's my stock Vega, right? So let's do the overclocked with the power limit and with the memory to 1100, and now I'll come right out and say it. 1100 is a little sketchy. There's certain things that you might have driver crashes. Now, actually, this result, both these results are after a GPU driver crash and a recovery. I was still able to use the operating system on a beta driver. That's impressive to me for AMD. I mean, even for Nvidia, they sometimes have trouble with that. I'm just really happy that I can say now, because at one time that was not the case, especially with the beta driver, that you can recover from a GPU crash and still be able to use your system even after the fact. So it doesn't fuck anything up, which is nice. Anyway, 27,962 for just the graphics score is the only thing that really matters here. This is in my Ryzen 18 core or 8 core on the Vega Frontier, right? Let's see here. I have another result here just to show you that this is actually a result that I got. Benchmarks. And I think, if I remember correctly, this is the benchmark I did because this is the one they were talking about. It doesn't really matter. You can do whatever you want. But so let's take those numbers and let's figure out what percentage, because you might see other things on the internet. If I can find it here. Of course not. What the actual F just happened to it? Here we go. These guys here. I don't know who they are. BabbleTechReviews.com. Okay, well, that's fine. I don't really, I don't have anything against some new guy, because they might be trying harder than the established guy, right? And they might have taken their time more. So they're talking about percentage of increase. Their best ever on the Vega was 10% for this particular game. And a lot of them are in the 4% ranges. Okay? Now, this is a liquid cooled, mind you. So, now their results... Let's get my 3D Mark out. Fuck. No, I don't want that. Let me get their results are a little different because they're using TimeSpy, and for whatever reason, TimeSpy does not scale anywhere near as well. So what they get? TimeSpy, they use 1440p. They got a completely different number than me, so they obviously changed something around. So I got 6100. They got 7375. Okay, I'm pretty sure that their TimeSpy results or their settings are considerably different than mine. That's a big performance delta for both being stock. The FE is going to be very similar. I have a Vega 64 from XFX that is very close to the same performance as my Vega FE. The FE is faster. That's my point. So to say that this stock liquid cooled card is 1,000 points faster is just ridiculous. So I definitely know it's a setting change. Anyway, you can see that the difference between the two results are very slim, and even more so on Firestrike, even less, right? So I don't know what they're doing, but I can tell you right now that my results from Firestrike to Firestrike are considerably different. Now let's take a calculator over here, and let's just take the numbers. Let's punch them in. There's two different ways to do this. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. A marketing way and a real world way. So the real world way is to take that's a fucking tongue twister. Take the 2297 and you divide that by the higher score. Okay? Wherever that went to. By the 27,962. And there you go. You take the 82.2, okay, from 100. Oh. And there you go. 17.8% actual performance increase from doing the overclock. Okay? Now, if you were to take the numbers the other way around, because that's what most graphic card manufacturers would like you to believe is the actual performance increase, which, I mean, the way they word it is correct. That means this card is X number faster than the previous generation, okay? But that doesn't mean it's an actual improvement of this percentage. So we're going to take the big number first, 962, and we're going to divide that by the smaller number. Which is the 22,997. And there you go, 21.5% or 21.6% instead of 17.8. See the difference there? So that means that this card is, from overclock state perspective, looking back, it's 21.5% faster. But looking forward, you're only gaining 17.8% of your performance. This is more relative or more accurate to the performance gain you're going to get, okay? So this is just a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of FUD. Lack of a better word. But anyway. So for them to say on this other chart here, wherever it went to, for them to say that they're only seeing, 3 or 4% increase across the board. This 10 is an outlier. I don't know why, for whatever reason, 4K. Let me tell you something. This card is not a 4K card. It is designed to work at 1440p or 1080p. Why? I'll show you why. Oh, wrong one. If you look at your pixel fill rate and your texture fill rate, your textures are essentially what the scene is being rendered as, right? Like, that's all your lighting effects and all the bullshit going on. The pixel fill rate is how fast it can fill all those pixels on the display. So if you have more pixels, if you have a higher resolution, this here number is going to help you a lot better or a lot more at higher resolutions, provided that you have the memory bandwidth. Okay? So while this card does have a pretty good memory bandwidth, it doesn't have all the optimizations that the Nvidia card, in my opinion, cheats on, right? So They have color compression and things like that, and they have probably even a little bit. I don't know. I'm not exactly that technical on the details of the L2 cache and the compression algorithms and all. All I can tell you is that it's a little bit of FUD, right? There's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on with the Nvidia GPUs, and there's probably a little bit of smoke and mirrors going on with the AMD GPUs, okay? Which is okay, because in the end, that gives you better results, better gameplay, better performance, so it's okay, right? Me personally, I'm going to probably buy GPUs based upon this number alone. That stupid bandwidth number, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make the game playable, right? Like, you can turn settings down to match your fill rate and your pixel fill rate, right? So, personally, I would have much rather had a higher rope count. I would have rather had a 96 rope count, and this pixel rate would have been 140 instead of 107, right? And that, to me, would have been nice. I would have enjoyed that. But you can't have the best of both worlds, and it is what it is. I do game at a higher resolution, but that's okay. I've had Nvidia Titans in the past. I went from my 290X to a Titan X because that was what worked for my configuration at the time. I had three displays that were 30-inch, 2560 by 1600, and I wanted them in surround. And so I got that. I bought 3 Titan X, and I hooked them up natively to the DVI, and it worked. It worked good. The performance jump from the 290X to the Titan X was good in some games, but other games, it was just bad. Like, they were so memory starved, and there was just nothing you could do. Like, certain games just didn't feel as nice. Like, it's not a big difference, right? It's not like, oh, well, this game runs horrible and I won't have it, right? No, it's not like that. It's just little, man, coming from a 290X and being able to overclock that memory from 1200 to 1500 and the core from 1000 to 1240 or 1250 or whatever it was, that was a massive improvement on how that card felt. Like, and not to say that the Nvidia card didn't overclock great as well. Man, that Titan X or the 980 Ti's, man, they clocked like banshees. They were crazy. I mean, we're talking almost, 35% on the core clock? Which is great. If only they had given it the memory bus that it deserved, man. If they would have gave that card a 512 memory bus, that thing would have been smoking. I mean, it would have been killer. But they wanted the efficiency, and they got it. Because memory bandwidth doesn't give you efficiency. It takes more power to run. Unless, of course, you have HBM, which is more expensive to buy, but I digress. So let's look. Here's some more pictures of my Vega, in case anybody was wondering. So let's say today you wanted to buy this here Vega. You can't. It's out of stock. Which is fine. It was $1,500, and that's expensive. Nobody's going to buy it for that. If we wanted to buy one, though, right now today, here you go. Look no farther. It's not the LE edition or whatever have you, so it doesn't have the 3 8-pin connectors, which is fine. This is going to run, 98% of what the 3 connector one would have done anyway. I will say that I'm partial to Sapphire cards, and I ended up with an XFX because that's the only thing I could get at the time because it was in high demand when it got released. And for $500, man, I don't think you can go wrong. Figure this performance is equivalent, a little bit better than a 1080. Okay? As time goes on and DirectX 12 becomes adopted, hopefully, someday, right? We can all dream. It will eventually. And when it does, asynchronous compute is going to pay off. This card here should be on par with the 1080 Ti. Should be. And it might even stretch its legs ahead, or it might trail behind a little bit. Maybe. But you have to remember that when you're buying an Nvidia card, at least with the 10 series, it's clocked to the max out of the box. You might get an extra couple percent out of it if you go back and look at this other thing that I had up here a minute ago. You'll see the same kind of increase from the Nvidia card as you did, anywhere from 5 to 7% across the board, right? From overclocking. That's an overclock they're talking. Now, I've never owned the 10 series card, so I can't speak specifically on it, but I can tell you this: the Nvidia cards are definitely a lot simpler to overclock than the Vegas are. There's no question about that. There's a lot of misinformation and a lot of weird things that happen. If you set your voltage in Radian settings to a manual voltage, you wouldn't assume that the voltage would drop on its own, but it does, because what they do, and I think the reason they do this is for simplicity's sake. So they add a little extra voltage for a little extra headroom, stability wise, not for the performance. They want to make sure that those cards are out there and they're running stable. But the problem is, Nvidia did a really good job with their 10 series and their overclocking abilities, and so out of the box you're getting pretty much all you need, out of that card, and you're getting a little bit better power efficiency, and they know that, and they built their VRM specifically for that voltage, and you're not gonna, even if you volt mod it, you're not gonna get a lot extra out of that FE card, the 1080 series, because the VRM is only designed to handle that much power. So if you start adding more voltage, you're going to get unclean power or fluctuations which will make your GPU not stable. So you're going to end up, with a max clock of around 2100, and that's all there is to it. And that's only the very few people that have chips that'll do that. And most people are probably getting around 2000, maybe a little below, a little above, depending on your cooling. But yeah. That said, I will say that almost every single person that buys a GPU is getting a very similar product. I don't think there's a big variance between chips. That might not be the case with the next gen cards, but from what I've seen, you're probably not going to see a lot of difference. But here's another benchmark from these guys. And they talk about performance and 8K, right? And I think they did overclocking as well. I'm not sure. But anyway, they showed, how bad the performance is. Well, it's not really that bad. But the more interesting thing is look at the 1080 Ti compared to the Titan XP. These cards, the 1080 Ti should be faster, if I'm not mistaken, as far as raw power, right? Raw, what do you call it? Just raw numbers. The 1080 Ti should be faster. But then the Titan XP is pulling ahead here. Now, there's two things that could be happening. It could be the fact that it's got that 1 extra gig of VRAM, right? But somehow I don't think so. I think it comes down to the memory bus. And I think the 10 series is just as memory limited as the Titan X. Now, that's personally, the 1080 Ti with the cut bus was really a kick in the nuts to me as a consumer. I don't want that. I want my games to perform smooth and not be starting to stutter before the GPU runs out of horsepower. If the GPU runs out of horsepower, it still feels smooth, right? It doesn't start to give that stupid fucking, I don't know. It's like a micro stutter. It's not bad. It's still there. It's noticeable. I don't like it. So I go for memory bandwidth. I've always done that since I can ever remember, and that's part of the reason I was an Nvidia guy for years. And looking back now, probably not my best move. I probably should have given AMD more of a chance. Not saying that I didn't give them some of a chance too. And they had their own problems, and so did Nvidia. So, neither here nor there. But let's see here. So that's pretty much it right there. That's pretty much the reason I was all about Vega and not going for green tea. If I wanted a 1080, then I guess. But there again, you're looking at your memory bus being very limited, and I guess the only time it really is going to affect your performance is in Crossfire and SLI applications. The extra memory bandwidth should provide Vega with a better experience than the Nvidia card. All other things considered equal, which they're not. So, but there was one other thing I wanted to talk about, and I can't remember for the life of me, even though I just had it, and I was kind of rambling trying to find it, and I found it, and then I started talking about something else. So anyway, for $500 and you need a GPU, this is not a bad deal. I don't really need a GPU, so I'm not really going to buy one. New cards are coming. The 20 series is out in a couple of days here, and I'm not going to be buying one of those, in my opinion. It's not worth it. The cost of performance, even though they do have a little extra memory bandwidth, I don't know, man. It's still a cut down die. Their 2080 Ti is still a cut down version of it, and I just don't like it. If I were to buy one, I'd probably buy the Titan X, which might come out next year or something, but probably not, because it's on 14 nanometer, and they're just going to skip. This is a placeholder card with the RTX, and they're going to go right to a 7 nanometer as soon as they can. And because this year series was probably supposed to be on 10 nanometer anyway, and that didn't go through, so yeah, they ended up on 14. So yeah, it costs them a little extra to manufacture, and yeah, they got to put some extra VRMs on it and stuff, but don't worry, they're making enough money off you anyway. Man, I wish I could remember what I was going to talk about. I guess what we can do is we can minimize this and get out of those percentages, because they don't really matter that much. If you guys have any particular games you'd like to see run overclock, not overclock, that sort of thing. Oh, my XFX Vega 64 will run 1630 core clock with this default cooler, and if I remember correctly, that's with a decent fan profile that's not 100% fan. Now, is the fan terrible on that? No, you can run it 100% and still live, in the same room. It's not terrible. It is noisy, but it's not terrible, right? The liquid cooled edition does make noise. The only time it's really noticeable or annoying is when it changes its fan speed. And that's one of the problems, is you can't set hysteria or whatever they call it for degrees of Celsius. So if the temperature fluctuates only a couple of degrees, the fan speed maintains its speed. If it fluctuates 5 degrees, then it starts to move. And I like that. And I can do that with MSI Afterburner. However, I haven't dived in deep enough to figure it out, because I'm sure I know there's other ways to overclock it. With that said, I don't know. Whoops, sorry. So this is on my Ryzen system. I'm pretty happy with the Vega FE for most things. I run 3840 by 1600 ultra wide, and it does a pretty good job. There's only a few games that I really, really want more. Super sampling in City Skylines at that resolution, 300-400% would be nice to be able to do with 60 frames per second. It's just not going to happen right now. You can go 300% and get adequate performance, but that thing is really sucking the juice to do that. So 7 nanometer Vega, I'm all over that. If I can get one of them, I'm doing it. So that's probably my primary reason for not picking up that other doohickey. Whatever it is. What was I going to show you? Pretty happy with the Ryzen system. Works pretty good. Memory performance is key. So this is 2933 and 14, 14, 14, and I got some subtimings done and stuff, and I'll tell you it plays pretty good. Probably better than pretty good. Probably really good by most people's standards. Fuck. I have like this brain blockage going on right now. Oh, Ark Survival. Yeah, at 4K or whatever, ultra wide, just ain't happening. You had to turn the settings down so far that it just doesn't look nice anymore. I mean, it still looks okay, right? But not like you would like it to look. So, if I were still playing that game regularly, I'd probably pick up a 2080 Ti anyway, even though that's not my go-to style card, and I don't like Nvidia. But that particular performance of that card is good, and if that was a game that I was going to get a lot of hours out of, then that's what you should do. I mean, if that's what works for you, then absolutely get what works for you. If a game that you're playing all the time requires that much cheaper. Here's the problem. Most people don't understand, especially people running 1080p or 1440p, you don't have to have the best GPU out there to have a really good gaming experience. You can move a slider down if it suits on that particular game. You can, do certain things to optimize to make it work. This year bullshit that no compromise, have all the sliders cranked up, have all the anti-aliasing cranked up. Most people don't even realize their GPUs are sitting at, most people that have a 1080 Ti, which is quite a few, don't even realize that they could have just as well been happier with the 1080 and had faster memory for their CPU and lower latency for their CPU. They would have had a better gaming experience. They have no idea. No clue. So, yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm sure I remembered something else, and I'll have to add it in later. I just can't think of it right now. 17% improvement, 17.8, whatever, improvement out of overclocking when everybody says that you can't overclock Vega. That's annoying to me. I don't like seeing that. Does it not? I mean, like, is it the best card in the world? No. Is it a cost-effective card? Yeah, I think so. Oh, I remember again. Look at that. So, playing Forza, and I'm going to reinstall it again to re-verify this with new drivers, and I've had some new information come to my attention, and I want to test it out. Basically, Forza just plays better on AMD, and I think it's because it's actually optimized for AMD cards, whereas most games are not, because most developers think, well, number one, Nvidia's paying us to optimize. Number two, Nvidia won't let us optimize better for AMD. They'll get angry. If an AMD card outperforms it, they will get angry. Like, make no mistake. So they'll have repercussions for that, especially if Nvidia's paying them money to make sure that their hardware performs better, right? So keep that in mind when you're looking at game reviews and stuff like that. As more people adopt into the AMD segment, you're going to see AMD doing better, and I think AMD really needs to step up their game with game development. They need to have at least a few titles that really show off how well the AMD hardware runs, and I think that a good indication of that is Forza and Forza Horizon 3 specifically on my Titan X with reduced settings, like big time reduced settings. It was still choppy in certain spots of the game, even with the extra frame buffer or pre-rendered frames. Okay, now with the Vega, it just ran perfect. There was no stutter. Max settings. Now I understand that's a whole generational leap, right? But I don't know. I honestly don't know why that is. But I will say this. AMD cards for me, personally, have just felt better. There's certain games where you have to turn settings down. But don't worry, they're there for the Nvidia cards too. So, I mean, it's not like one team is just flat out the best, right? There's compromises on both sides. That's what I'm trying to say. So don't not give someone else a chance, especially when the market really needs them. What's good for everyone? AMD and their open source instead of Nvidia and their proprietary bullshit. That, we have ray tracing, but we're not going to allow it to run on our old cards at all. Regardless if it would, which it wouldn't, but we're not going to allow it to. Okay? That's garbage. And the fact that for a fact they're not going to let any of the GIMP works, if you want to call it, run on AMD hardware. Heaven forbid. I mean, shit, it might even perform better in certain cases on the opposing team's hardware if it were optimized for it. So they're definitely not going to let that happen. And it makes sense. As a company, it makes absolute sense. Why would you, right? But if you care about your money and your value of your product, then we need more companies like AMD. And hopefully Lisa Su doesn't change what the company is. And, time will tell. So far, right now, I'll take any competition we can get, because Intel and Nvidia are not the only guys in the house that you want. It's just like Microsoft. Do you want the only operating system to be Windows? Because I'll tell you right now, I don't. And I would use Linux if I could learn how to make it work for my games. Not to say I haven't dabbled with Linux and gotten some things to work, but I don't want to have to switch operating system just to do something, So there's that, and there's other, specific things that just won't work on Linux, like Forza, for example, and I enjoy that game. So I could play a set of Corsa, I think, on Linux, but I'll have to dig some more into that. Anyway, getting off topic, AMD has a good card here. It's a good price. It does overclock. You just have to know how to do it. And you don't necessarily undervolt it as much as you do just set it to manual voltage, which is kind of weird. But yeah, it seemed to help in my case. Adding voltage increases the power a lot. And make no mistake, this thing will chooch a lot of juice. From the wall, I've seen, like 580 watts from the wall with this thing overclocked and it working hard and the game working hard and everything. And, I could probably see if I was loading up the CPU at close to 100% and had the game chooching at 100%, I'd be close to probably 650, 700 watts. So, yeah, now here's the thing. Vega is power hungry when it's overclocked, but it's also very power efficient when it's not overclocked. So, let's say you're playing an older game like StarCraft 2. Man, obviously, it's not a very demanding game, right? Not for a video card of today. But the fact is, it runs very power efficiently, and it does it well. Let me show you what I mean. If you look here, GPU only power draw. That's with me recording and doing things, right? Now, I know I'm CPU recording, so don't get me mistaken that, it's not pulling anything. But my point is, if I go look at the wall, this correlates to it. Power draw is really good. Like my idle power usage is like 110 watts. That sounds like a lot until you realize that I have like 15 fans going. I got a big one. I got a couple small ones. I got two big ones, a couple small ones inside the case. And then I have the whole water cooling loop, which is 2 360 rads for the CPU. We won't get started on all that, but it's a lot of fans. And it's a lot of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. I think it's 8 fans on the radiators alone. And 2 of those are pretty high-powered fans. So this thing pulls a lot of wattage because of other devices. But overall, like playing smaller games and stuff, the power ability to scale with clock speeds is good. You can always adjust your power target. You can adjust your clock speeds. There's a lot you can do to maximize your power efficiency. And make no mistake, Vega is much more power efficient than any other card they've had before. So, it's good. It's not a bad card. Would I recommend going buying a card today? Only if you fucking needed one. There's going to be more options out there, later. So, when 7 nanometer hits, I'll tell you this much, I'm going to be buying some stuff, So, I don't know. Is it required? Probably not, but I like it, so why not? Okay, I need to shut up. This has probably gone on, 38 minutes recorded, and I haven't really talked about much other than Vega, so yeah, I might be a little crazy. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and leave a comment if you want to see something performance-wise out of this card, or if you want to see my other card going, I can probably put that into the system and try it out. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.